to most people, the concept of being able to switch on a feeling by feeling is just like an entirely alien concept. They just don't understand. Just what do you mean? Just feel. Just
if you give them a slap in the face, that may work. You know? What do you mean feel? What I mean by the I am presence, and then I want to hear your thoughts and your experience of the I am presence as well. So in my own journey, I was brought up as a religious person in Iran. So I had a religious background. And later on, I left religion and I went into spirituality. And I tried a bit of meditation. I tried energy work. I tried to learn about the chakras. And even though it was a really interesting experience to learn about all those things, it was overwhelming. Like I was just confused and I was lost. And my prior experience as a religious person gave me like more faith and stability. And I feel like the transition from my religious life to my spiritual life was destabilizing. I felt like even though I could connect directly to the spiritual dimensions, I could directly connect to spirit, I didn't have the ground in God like when I was a religious person. I didn't have the faith. And the third point in my life was when I discovered about the I am presence, which I think actually harmonized these two aspects of my life, the religious life and the spiritual life. The religious life obviously has too much rigidness. Religion has like annoying rules that's like specific to the culture, specific to the time. It's filled with human ego, and it's not the pure spirit. In a way, it's filtered through the human mind. The religious scriptures, even though they're full of truth, they're not to be taken fully as truths. So I discovered this thing called the I am presence, which allowed me to have an experiential understanding and feeling of God that is neither religious nor unstructured spirituality. It's an experiential thing. And it allows me to test and to verify. And as Rudolf Steiner says, the modern day today is the age of the human mind not being satisfied with religious explanations, with explanations like, just believe this. Each human being wants to know for themselves. The individual wants to know, like a scientist. And so I think the I am presence fits at the right cycle of time. And also it's more of a pure teaching that doesn't require dogma or belief. It requires you to go within yourself, ask certain questions, and to ask questions such as, what is aware of my experience? What is the witness? What is the I that is experiencing, that is aware of my experience right now? And with a simple question like that, what is aware of my experience, you realize that there is a presence there. There is an I am presence, an awareness of being that is prior to our experiences, within which we experience life. But it's free from it at the same time. Even though it's intimate with experience, it's free from it. And awareness of being seems to be in stillness, a reality that is still, and it doesn't change, like how our emotions, how our thoughts, how our feelings change. And again, in the religious scriptures, they talk about God as an unchanging reality, but nobody wants to put their faith and belief in God without knowing. Like, we don't know if God exists, right? But in the self-inquiry method of directly going to your I am presence, you can directly experience that it is a changeless reality, that it doesn't change. It's like the background stillness within which you experience the changing reality of life. Our thoughts change, our feelings change, our bodies change, but the awareness with which we are experiencing these things never changes. But yeah, I wasn't happy with just believing in God anymore. But now that I can experience this I am presence and its qualities, like I am presence, it doesn't change and it's not agitated. Therefore we say it is peace. His nature is peace. We say it is whole, complete. And the experience of wholeness is the experience of happiness, right? When we go to the experience of I am presence, it is something that doesn't lack anything. It is like a whole. It is wholeness itself. So when we experience that wholeness, when we go to our I am presence and we experience our wholeness, we experience true happiness, which doesn't need anything, doesn't desire anything. It's a state of no desire and no need. So yeah, I just wanted to open up the conversation about the I am presence as being an important bridge between unstructured spirituality that is lost and confused, and also too much structure of religious belief and religious ideas, and also as a way that is suitable for the modern man, for the modern mind, to discover God. Yeah, and I want to open it to you. I want to hear your thoughts and also your own experience of the I am. What are its significance for you?
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's a really good place to start for the audience, really, to understand where I'm coming from, because this is obviously going to be going out to, both of our audiences in essence. So from my perspective, I grew up kind of like a bit of a humble upbringing, North London, UK, and I experienced the world through a very empathic lens. So I used to feel animals, nature, and see things around people very, very naturally. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was something that was passed down in my family. That was like, my dad told me later on that there was kind of like white witches in the family, and it was something that had been passed on to me, where I used to sit in my bed looking at colours at nighttime, like purple little, almost like bubbles interplaying with each other. And I used to see like animals and things around people and around people's heads and bodies and that kind of thing. So I've naturally been, I would call like a spiritual empath, is what I call myself, like an intuitive psychic as such. And I never fitted in society at all. So, I bumbled through school, but essentially, to cut a long story short, I eventually developed my natural psychic senses, which I believe that absolutely everyone can do. And I trained in Psychic Circle and eventually started working on live TV, doing psychic mediumship. I then got into astrology, mind, body, spirit, energy healing, and numerology, and so many different understandings of what life is about and what we are about and how we fit into life as a whole. I became absolutely fascinated by the concept that we are connected to absolutely everything. We're one with absolutely everything. So this process was something that was spurred on in my psychic development training as such, Psychic Circle. I would connect with guides quite regularly, and this like transfiguration process whereby that you can kind of allow spirit to connect in with you, heighten your vibration, allow them to come from different dimensions, allowed me to connect with who I now know just as Monk. At the time he gave me his name, but I couldn't understand it. So then he just said, look, just call me Monk. And sometimes when I connect in with this energy, at first I gained these warm hands on the shoulders, and I'd feel like, oh, someone's touching my shoulders here. And I'd gain this buzzing feeling that rippled up towards me. And I'd be aware of a consciousness that was not mine. And my first experience of channeling was where I would have thoughts and ideas and ideologies put into my mind that were too quick for me to understand. It would just go boom, straight in. I'd be like, wow, okay. It was like I had a download of understanding that my brain was catching up with. And my monk, call him an ascended Shaolin monk, he has often worked with me, quite often in a very literal way, where he gives me information about what life's all about and what we're supposed to be doing, and all about the soul and the growth of the soul and what we're here to do in this physical incarnation. And it used to be that I would be directly getting information and channeling on, whereas now I feel like I've integrated enough of my guide's wisdom so that I feel it and express it, and then I get a little nudge if I'm slightly off track or not. Mm-hmm. So my understanding, sort of tapping into the I am presence, is interesting, because throughout my journey of development, I've kept what I would call one foot in the spiritual dimension through my upbringing, what I would call my natural genetics or spiritual vibration. And then I've had quite a left brain orientated side of things, well, right, left. And so I also studied counseling, hypnotherapy, masters in psychology. I was also trained to be a teacher. I was very fascinated with science and its understanding of the biology and how it works. And, you know, I kind of grew up on sci-fi and how the brain and analyzing everything, and science wins the day, right? So, but then at the same time, I've got this very intuitive, emotional feel state and oneness aspect that seems to be the polarity of that. So to me, I've kind of stepped like a balancing wheel to one, to the other, to one, to the other, attempting to fit into the ideologies of I suppose, the modern world. And I did take a dip into spirituality, and I studied quite a few different spiritualities, Christianity and Buddhism, and I even went down the Druidic paths and shamanism practices, because to me, the alignment of nature, for a very long time, and I still really adhere to this sort of subconsciously, I believe, that if a principle is to be correct, we must be able to see it acting out within nature itself.
Yes.
Because everything, I feel, all nature is created within a specific paradigm that we belong to within this vibration. Now, going on to the I am presence, I personally believe, I suppose from experience, that this state of, I call it oneness. Mm-hmm. And when you were looking at the I am presence, it's very much being aware of the awareness of awareness, in essence. So it's above being aware. Now, because I follow the mind, body, spirit model, which in essence is a little bit more, it's a little bit more to it, but within the mind layer of human experience, we have our thoughts and our feelings and their interplay. Mm-hmm. Within the body, we have our physical matter aspect of the body, but we have our energetic body, which involves the different vibrations of, say, the chakra interplay. And then we have the spirit level, or the spirit layer of human experience, which is what we consider more of our soul, which is our passions, our dreams, our aspirations, the part of ourselves that, let's just say, it's the part of us that pushes us outside of comfort zone to do the things that often are the greatest things that human beings can do. Mm-hmm. And then we have the spirit aspect of the spirit layer. So we have the soul and the spirit aspect. And the spirit layer is the connection to everything and oneness. And it's what science would call the universal field, and Christianity would call God. And it's the consistent presence of, and again, I like to kind of cross over with almost spiritual science in this context, because there is a crossover going at the moment within science and spirituality where they're meeting in the middle.
Exactly, yeah.
And this is where potentiality, right? So it's been proven, when this was done in the double slit experiment, essentially, where it's proven that essentially nothing exists in essence in matter or form until it is observed. So we're talking about awareness, right? And so everything otherwise is in a permanent state of potentiality, right? It's just raw energy that is always here and always will be, right? And this is where I feel like we get back to, in principle, back to the I am presence. The moment that we are aware of that there is a constant stillness of raw, vibrating creativity that is not just energy in its form in terms of science. And this is kind of interesting, because we can talk about this, that everything in itself is consciousness, right? So in order for a lamppost to not dismantle itself into raw energy, it must remain the identity of lamppost or brick or whatever. It has to remain and keep its structure formed in that manner. So there is an identity, and this is where I kind of got fascinated by the idea of shamanic and druidic philosophies that kind of cross over upon the idea that there are elementals, like so the earth elementals, water elements, etc. There is a consciousness, a rule set that, earth in itself has certain parameters that adhere to a principality of gravity that is different to that of air and all those kind of things. So there's an identity that governs it. And when we understand that, science likes to separate it, that everything is consciousness in itself. Everything is and consciousness can be almost defined in its simplistic form to awareness of. But within consciousness there is a sometimes definition. When things come into matter and form, they cease to become all one, and they become part of an aspect of consciousness. And this is where we come to the spliced aspect in the idea that you are me and I am you, expressing ourselves in different expressions, etc.
Right, that's good.
And when we look at that in life, every single one of us is a shard of the oneness and the connection of everything, all expressing ourselves from different angles. But when we connect to the I am presence, I believe what we're doing, and in the psychic circle avenue, we would call this called a sitting in power. And it's when we are able to deeply feel the almost, if we could go up to and connect into the raw essence of life-giving potentiality that's always there, that feeds us with life, fills us with understanding, that's always, again, constantly there. That is the I am presence. And when we're connecting to it, it's like we're getting a constant flow of connection to everything, and it's still and it's peaceful.
Yes. I just want to jump here and read a quote from Saint Germain, which is really powerful, and I was just reading it earlier. I've got it over here. I think it's really relevant to include Saint Germain here, because Saint Germain is one of the ascended masters who is spreading the I am presence in its really pure form that you can apply to your life. And Saint Germain always talks about the I am presence is not something mystical, that it is not something like extraordinary, it's something practical that you can apply to your life. Saint Germain says in the book of the I Am Discourses, "There is no greater joy in creation than to use the sacred fire to dissolve the shadows and let the beauty and manifestation within the light to come forth, to serve life in everlasting joy." And the other one is, "Remember, the only means by which the powers of presence can find activity is through your mind, body, and feeling world." And I think these are such powerful statements, because we often think of God as this thing that we have to like contact, and first we go to God to give us answers. But the thing is, what Saint Germain is saying here is that we don't need to go to God in that way. We need to put God into action. God is a principle that can be put into action with our mind, our feeling, our mind and our feeling, especially our feeling. Saint Germain talks about the feeling is a powerhouse. So we can put God, I am presence, into action through the mind and through our feeling, instead of thinking, oh, why doesn't God, destroy all the evil in the world? But the right question is, why are you not destroying all the evil in your world? Because if everybody did that, if everybody brought their own I am presence to the thinking life, to the feeling life, and then also projected out to the world, based on what Saint Germain is saying, is that your world is imperfect because you have forgotten how to use the knowledge of the I am presence. And it's he says another place in the book that the I am presence is the power that is beating your heart. And do you not think the power that is beating your heart cannot create the things that you want, or it cannot dissolve the shadows in the world? But it cannot do that by itself. It needs you as an instrument for it to come into action. So there's a beautiful story in the Gospels where Jesus is with his disciples, and his disciples asked Jesus, why was this man born blind? What is the purpose of this man being born blind? And then Jesus responds and says, so that the glory of God can shine through him. And then Jesus, I think, either puts his hand on his eye or gives him a clay to put over his eye, or to wash in the river nearby. And then the man gets his eyesight back. And what Jesus was demonstrating is that he can use the I am power, put it into action, and perfect an imperfect world. Because how God, I suppose, is that God is kind of really hard to create a perfect world that is truly perfect. it's better to create an imperfect world where he can work with man and to perfect it together as a like a collaboration, right? So we are the instrument of God to perfect God's work, right? It's like God's written a piece of piano music, but it's unfinished. And it's through the instrument of the human mind and the human feeling particularly that we can finish this, not finish, but contribute towards this melody, right? Yeah.
Some things that seem to have come to mind as you're talking along those lines are the context that every human being in itself is born abundant, but what we have misunderstood about that is that we can be abundant in lack. We can be abundant in misery. We can be abundant in discord. We can be abundant in happiness. We can be abundant in anything. So we are constantly abundant. We abundant in experience, right? And that experience can be anything, but we're abundant anyway. And when we're dealing with what we experience in our life, what I've often felt and what my guide's given me, and what I've gained from many different connections through channeling, is that everything that we receive in life is a mirror of what we believe. So we receive what we believe. But a lot of those beliefs are often subconscious. And what tends to happen here is if we allow our mind to rule things, we need a mind-heart coherence. This is the thing that we need to feel. And when we're in coherence, we are in flow with I deal with a specific form of coaching, which is soul growth coaching, which is, to me, we are all born with souls that have a direct connection to source and the I am presence in itself. So in essence, the I am is actually the observer of our experience, right? So we actually have the soul that is observing us and guiding us through passion and love and contribution. And then we have the connection of source, which is a consciousness in itself that is observing the soul and its incarnation. So within that, the thing that gets in the way is what I'm often told by my guide, is that we live in a society today that nurtures the mind so much so that you cannot hear the wisdom of the heart. So the mind feels like it sounds so simple when we say it, but the heart is ill-equipped to tell us what makes us happy, right? The mind is supposed to be a tool to align the energy into a form and a direction, right? So it's the art of creation comes from feeling passion that flows from the soul, which is connected to the I am presence of flow of the field. We feel passion. The mind forms that into a specific form. And that's what it's supposed to do. But quite often what we need to do is we need to feel our way through. We need to do the feel aspect first. Now, when we're dealing with the head-heart coherence, this is science. Science kind of caught up with this. When you look at the neurobiology here, and again, as you can see me going slightly to the kind of science side, left, right. It's been proven that the connections that flow from the heart to the head are not, most of the impressions go from head to heart. It's the other way around. It's like 80+% of the neurological pathways go from heart to head, not the other way around. So it's actually the heart that leads the head, not the other way around. And the heart itself has an ability to sense and feel vibrational states and understandings and connections to oneness and connections to this I am state, which should be leading us. Now, being able to fully tune into and power ourselves up through the connection to source. And I say this is one of the things that I believe there's an epidemic of this going in with society at the moment. A lot of people are disconnected from a good way to put the I am presence, similar to connecting to God or source, is emotionally being able to plug ourselves into the mains, right? Just the moment that you just sit there and you balance yourself, and you sit and you feel, and just being aware of who you are, aware of being aware, fills you up. It's almost like it connects you, and it fills you up, and it's all the energy you need. People are disconnected from that. They don't know how to do that. So what they're trying to do is get it from dopamine hits, stimulation, sex, addiction, gambling, whatever other vice you've got. Whereas the only reason they're doing that is because they're not emotionally and energetically fulfilled from their connection to the universe, which is what I believe within the religious text they're trying to get us back to. But I think over generations, the connotation of it's God that is an identity, and the idea of such strict adherence to limitations on self, it's lost, I believe that along the lines, it's lost an awful lot of its meaning. Like, to believe has been misunderstood. Whereas I feel in literal understanding, belief is almost like it's trust in flow. Really, that's what I feel like it. But to believe has almost become synonymous with just switching the brain off and being an idiot. That's how a lot of people in modern society have kind of just believe without proof or evidence. And that's where the brain, or the left side of the brain that's logical and wants to kind of deduce and control everything, and the ego has stepped in to believe that it can understand everything through trying to understand the cause and effect of the 3D reality we live in. But it doesn't take into account that there is a greater cause for everything that actually is the field itself, the I am presence, the connection towards this ability to connecting to raw potentiality, that energy. And if we were able to plug everyone else back into the mains, to be able to get them to find that inner peace, stillness, the I am presence, the ability to feel that, like, wow, I can feel calm, I can feel at peace, I can feel empowered. But it's not just at peace. This is the interesting thing. There's a buzzing vibration of raw energy when you connect to it. Like for those of you that may have done deep meditations, it feels like there's a magnetic force. Imagine almost being a Jedi, right? Where you feel the force, right? It's a little bit like there is an energetic field that flows over you and through you. And you can literally feel as if you are held in place by a magnetic force or energy. And then you can feel this warmth and energy and vibration that just comes from the inside and flows over you. And you just feel like that you can just stay there, feeling still yet energized and buzzing with energy. Just by doing that.
Yeah. As you were talking, the things that came to my mind, not to my mind, but to my awareness, was I learned the technique of self-inquiry from my teacher Rupert Spira, and he told me about doing this, becoming aware of awareness. And as you're saying, it feels like something, right? It's not something like in the mind where you're trying to like figure stuff out. It's something experiential, and that's what makes this conversation exciting, because God is an experiential state within each of us, and it's not even a state. It is really our true nature, which is often sort of hiding in the background. But the more we give it our energy, our attention, our love, not our attention, but energy and love, the more it becomes an experiential thing. And as you were talking, the thing that I do practically, like a practical exercise, is first going to like awareness of being, when you're just aware of your being, but then adding love to the mix. So you're not aware of your being, right? It's that emptiness, that stillness. And now you're switching off love, warmth, compassion within this field. And how you do that is just by feeling love. How I do it is by feeling love in my whole energy body. That's how I feel it. So first, stillness, aware of awareness, and then you become loving towards you feel the love and you direct it towards this awareness of being. And then there's a balance of masculine and feminine. Like there's a warmth, but there's also an expansiveness. There's a warmth, but there's also understanding of oneness. But it's not just like a oneness, it's warm, it's connecting, it's compassionate, is healing. And it's in that state where we can heal. It's in that state where true wisdom can come spontaneously, that is balanced, is not too masculine. This is just the knowledge you have to believe. But the love is encoded within the teaching. The energy has love and understanding in a balanced way. If I was like an academic teacher and I was just talking about awareness, and I even had a practical exercise to feel awareness, okay, we feel awareness, but there's no warmth and there's no love for this awareness, it feels like it's not complete yet. So awareness is not pure until it is truly loving, you know. And love, what love means, is not something I can describe, but in my energy, it's like a warm feeling, and it's the feeling of like oneness with the thing that you're coming into contact with. So I love cats, so when I'm with cats, I feel like the oneness between me and the cat. If you love a human being, like your significant other, like when you're with them, love is the experience of dissolving the egoic sense of self, and you feel like one. So it's the experience of love, is the experience of oneness. But the difference with this practice is you are loving your I am presence, you're loving God, and you, what the Sufis say, die before you die. And die before you die means to, they also use the analogy of being burnt, like fire. So the more you dissolve through loving this awareness of being, the more you dissolve in this awareness of being, the more you actually become this awareness of being. And it's really, the Sufis are really good at like expressing love towards God. But again, I don't like the word God. I like the word I am presence, because it's more scientific. It's less, it has less religious baggage. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we direct this loving awareness towards our I am presence, towards the awareness of being. And that's, and I feel like I try to feel that in my whole like energy body.
Yeah. See, it's kind of interesting because I was actually talking to a client of mine a few days ago. We tapped on certain aspects here because being able to, you've kind of tapped on an aspect that I believe for many people is a huge hurdle. And it's the ability to feel without justification. Right? Most people will go, I'll feel happy or I'll feel love when. Mm-hmm. Right? Most people are stuck in that mental paradigm. It's a prison. When I got the job, when I've got this, when I've got a perfect partner, when I've got this, I will then allow myself to feel. Right? That's a mental prison. And what my guide told me once, and it was beautiful. I remember the day that it happened, and he just said to me, love is so simple and it's so natural, but we've just forgotten how. And he said to me this one thing: when was the last time that you felt the inside of the bone of the tip of your finger? And I went, oh. He goes, right, we're not taught that, right? I said, now just send, and if you're watching, listening to this, do it now, right? Send your senses simply to the bone in the tip of your finger. And do nothing else but send your senses there. And then feel deeper into the bone, deeper and deeper, and just feel it, right? And then feel into the knuckle. And just send it. So this is a somatic reconnection. And actually, the state of love is unjudgmentally observing the feel state of yourself. When you can do that, you realize that the act of simply feeling with the mind off, not judging, not analyzing, the mind gets in the way, as my guide always says, puts you into the state of oneness. You start to enjoy just feeling your body. If you just send your senses around your body and feel what your bones feel like, feel what your muscles feel like, without judgment, without trying to go, what does that mean? Does that mean I've got this? Get the mind out of the way and get to the somatic experience. We don't need to do anything other than feel. And if we get used to feeling, just switching on feeling without justification, we will naturally connect to oneness when we feel our bones and our essence and all that we are. When we dig deeper, this has been proven in science, right? If you look at an atom and you observe it, you delve into that atom, you'll find the quarks. You delve into that, you delve in, you go deeper and deeper and deeper. You get to potentiality, field, oneness. So if you just feel the tip of your finger, the bone, and then you feel deeper into the bone, and deeper into that deep depth, and more in, you eventually then spread that throughout your whole body, and you're feeling oneness. You're feeling the connection to the field. Whether you want to call it the I am presence, you want to call it God, it's a feel state that recharges us, fills us with, and that state of unbiased, unjudgmental feeling is love. It is connection.
Yes. And as you were saying, what came to my mind was maybe to add to your explanation like a geometrical basis. And like in sacred geometry, a zero-dimensional point is something that has no dimensions, no length, no width, no height. And the geometrical template we can give to the I am presence is that point, which fills every space, whether it's a mental space, a physical space, spiritual space. And that center is not a real center that exists. It's a zero-dimensional center that is in everything and is everywhere. At the same time, it's not really any particular place. It's beyond space and time. But when you cut, as you were saying, when you cut space-time, you go through the atoms and the particles and the subatomic particles, and eventually you get to the quantum field, and eventually you get to love. Love, that like the center of the center of the center, is the I am presence.
Yeah.
And an amazing practice, which I haven't actually practiced, but I thought about experimenting, is like going to each of the chakras and affirming the presence of the I am in each of the chakras, to bring in the qualities of the zero dimensionality to your chakras, and the qualities of peace, love, and joy, and wholeness, which is the qualities of God. You bring it to your chakras. So you're not really just doing an affirmation, you're bringing God into each of these spaces. And oftentimes when I practice Reiki, I've tried to combine this I am presence with Reiki, and combine like prayers and energetic sort of transmissions towards certain areas in my body, where I'm transmitting the I am to certain areas in the body. And Saint Germain actually talks about, if you want to perfect the body, say, I am the perfection of my liver. And with that affirmation, you can also send the energy there. You can place your hand on your liver, on your kidneys, on your stomach. Say the affirmation and also feel the I am. Go to your awareness of being, and then send that loving awareness of your I am, send that to the liver, send that to the kidney, send that to the stomach. So it's a combination of I am presence affirmation with placing your hands, which are the energetic emissions of your body, in different areas of the body, and just perfecting it one by one with the I am presence, with the I am power. And the power of that is, again, God is the center which is already creating your organs. You just consciously like using it instead of it being unconscious. You know, God is already beating your heart. Now you are consciously co-creating with God. And that's like the power that Jesus is always using. This level of understanding in the Bible, he's commanding, he's declaring, and he's decreeing things to happen. He doesn't ask God, please, I beg you to make this happen, you know. He comes from the I am presence and says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So when he says these statements, these are powerful technologies. They're not statements, because we are the image of God. And as God creates with the word, with the sound, we create with word and sound. So it is really God's voice that we have. So by speaking out those affirmations, feeling them, and using the words I am, Jesus was using the highest form of technology, using what they call in physics the zero dimension and zero dimensionality, and also free energy technology. You know, this is a form of tapping into free energy technology, is to go to the zero dimensionality of each thing. So in this example, we're doing alchemy. So we're going to the zero dimensionality of our organs, we're finding the I am presence, and then we're creating that organ, we're perfecting that organ, right? So obviously there's other ways to tap into the free energy technologies. There's other ways, but Jesus was using one way to harmonize his energy field, harmonize his thoughts, his feelings, and also he had power over the physical world. He could perform miracles. So he had tapped into the free energy technology and also to the zero dimensionality, which allowed him to have control over dimensions. If you can go beyond dimensions, you can begin to co-create with dimensions, right? If you can go to the place of like God, creator, you can begin to create because you are in that place, right? So this is as much as I understand today, but I'll love to hear your thoughts about this.
Yeah, the perspective that I've often been given is that there's a couple of different things I want to add to this. That, see, when we speak, a little bit of Joe Dispenza's work, which I think is also quite important, that when we think of anything, it is empowered by the emotion that we have attached to that. And our heart is like the charge. The thought is the form, right? So let's use an example, right? Your head will be looking at or thinking of the concept of happy in my job, right? Happy in your job. So you've got that in your head. You're thinking of the office or the job that you want. You've got the image of that in your mind. You then have the feeling of, I want that, the feel state that runs through you. And then what you're doing is you're weaving that into a spell, and you're placing that energy form into the metaphysical universe to be created like a seed. But what you must realize within that is you're creating the idea of job with the I want in the future. Exactly. So what you're doing is you're creating more of I want a job all the time. And so
it's a place of lack, right?
It's from a place of lack. And ultimately, all oneness and the I am state essentially is connecting into the raw building blocks of energy and manifestation and life itself, right? So it is the essence of everything. So if you can tune, it's almost like in science, they talk about things like stem cells and the raw atoms that make everything up and all that. If you can just tune into the raw energy and connect with that feel state, then you're just basically filling yourself up with everything that has been degrading, so to speak. Well, again, there's a paradigm towards that. We are often born with patterns of existence that have necrotic or entropy built in with them. And quite a lot of that is down to a belief system that we have been built with. Right? So when we get to the feel state of being able to truly understand and connect in with raw energy, we understand that we can essentially reprime our energetic field. But the interesting thing here is that my guides often talked about the aspect of being, we talked about this the other day, being less in the mind is actually more effective than using the mind, especially with today's society. So in the context of, if you can, we are all magicians crafting spells of our thoughts and feelings at all times. Unless we can police and regulate absolutely every single thought, we are unconsciously crafting all the time.
Exactly.
So it is actually better to just get to simply feel the I am presence. Like I mentioned before, the feel state, the somatic feel state, go into it, feel it, go inside, and then feel it flowing through your body. And just feel that. What you will find is that energetically you will become a match to experiences that match that vibrational state. You don't actually need to project it anywhere. You don't have to think, for example, what in the modern world, we have things like, well, in order for me to feel this state of oneness and happiness, I must be earning £1 million on the beach with the most pretty person and the great. We put ideologies of what would justify a certain state of feeling.
We're giving our power away, essentially.
Yes.
We're giving it to an external circumstance.
That's right.
Outside of our being.
Yeah. But we're also projecting what we believe would lead to that state based upon conditioned mindset. But what if we just simply gave ourselves the feeling of complete oneness and love? Then the experiences that our highest self, our soul knows, are in alignment with that will simply flow to us. We don't need to know that. Do we need to know? If we are going to be blissfully happy and at one with everything, do we really care which form that comes in? It's the ego. And again, we talk about the ego is the mind's arrogant understanding of the form by which it feels would make it feel deeply at one and happy.
Yeah. A really good explanation of the ego that is in one sentence that I've heard from my teacher Rupert Spira. He has many different, simple, concise explanation. But one is that ego is the activity of resisting, seeking, and resisting. So seeking is for the future, resisting is for the past. So if you find yourself, instead of being, thinking, as you were saying, the future, I'm going to get this car and that's going to make me happy. So you're seeking. Then resisting is about a past trauma, a past experience. And resisting and experiences happen to you. And you're tightening up. Whereas seeking is your sort of projecting into the future, So any time you find yourself in the past, in the dead world of the past, or really the illusory world of the future, you realize you're in ego. So you have to bring yourself back to the presence. Yeah. And one of the ways to do that is being aware of awareness. Yeah. And there's other ways too.
Yeah. Love that. Exactly. And again, it goes back to a little bit of Joe Dispenza work, because I do love his work. It's great. So if you love what we're talking about, I would definitely suggest one of his books. Is that if all of the energy that we have and everything that exists is only in the present, if you are thinking of the past, you're sending your energy to an illusionary state that you're creating in your mind. It doesn't exist other than in your own cerebral cortex, right? So you're sending energy into a state of being that isn't now. And again, if you're doing that towards the future, you're just pushing it outside of the now, right? So you're just sending your energy. You're splicing your energy about. And ultimately, when we are aware that essentially everything we are thinking and feeling in unison is crafting spells, right? Yeah. We need to hone that. It's a gift that we have been given, right? The mind. But as my guide brings it back to, is that we have not been taught how to use this correctly, right? And in today's world, it has been overly conditioned to believe that feelings are attained by achievements, right? Which is entirely incorrect. That's the ego in itself. Feelings are attained by feeling. That is it. Don't use the mind to feel.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that comes to my mind, I had a shamanic teacher once, and I was struggling with confidence issues, and he said to me, just be confident. Just right now, be confident. I was like, what? Yeah. And that was really the teaching. It's it's a decision, and it's a feel state. It's a thing that you can actually create. You don't have to make the million to be confident. You can be confident now, but just deciding to be confident. Yeah. And so I think you had something else to say.
It was being aware of the rules. We all have rules that we believe, checklists internally, subconsciously and even consciously, that we feel we must attain in order to feel anything. Dissolve all of them, right? And then again, people will go, I can't just sit here and feel happy. Well, why? Delve into it. Ask yourself, why? Why? And it'll be, because, delve why, to every single answer. And you'll eventually boil down to the fact that you've just fallen out of practice with enjoying feelings. See, my guide says to me, everything is so simple. simply just feeling because it feels good to feel. Now, there's something else that my guide wants to emphasize here. And the analogy that he gave me is that we can imagine all feel states are... The good way to build the analogy here is that a lot of people get, feelings that swamp over them, right? They get stuck in the system with their stress, depression, anxiety, etc. Right? And we've got two different things towards this one, but I'll work with the first one. Okay. Now, the first one is that we have a story attached to most things, and that's the mind's ego, right? So there's been neurological sort of comprehensions built into this. So if we look at this again, stepping into the left side of the brain, into science, for those of you that like the science, if you say something to yourself like, oh, I am so peeved off, right? That will trigger adrenaline, cortisol, etc., to flood through your system, flow through your body, through into your bloodstream, etc., trigger the muscles to tense, etc. Now, if you just were to have that one thought and feeling attached, and were to say nothing else and think nothing else, and just to allow that feeling to flow through your body, on a neurological level, that sensation and the chemical flow that flows through your body will be gone in approximately 90 seconds or a little bit over, right? But what we do as human beings is we don't just have that one thought and feeling. We go, I'm so flaming this, that, and the other, and because of this, and because of that, and blah, blah, blah. And then we build a story that loops and loops and loops and keeps us perpetually stuck in that state, right? And then if that goes on for long enough, that turns into a subconscious state of being, and that turns into who we are, right? So we must be aware of what stories we're spinning to ourselves. I can't feel that because my ex did this to me. I can't feel this because I've got none of this, or these are all limitations, self-imposing limitations we place upon ourselves. The secondary point that I want to make is a lack of trust in the process and the power of somatically feeling. Now, what my guide mentions here, and it's a beautiful story because this is powerful, is that if you can imagine all feelings, going back to the elements, all feelings could be represented by the water element, right? If you can imagine the I am presence, source, oneness would be the ocean itself, right? And all fragmentations of that feel state, such as pain, such as, irritation, whatever, are bits of rain and water that have been taken from the sea, and all water goes back to source eventually, so long as it's not resisted and it's just felt. Now, water will be rained and it will flow down a river. And so let's just say a drop of rain is the feeling of anger. Now, if we just feel it, and again, feel, and this is something different to run the narrative of the story that created it. That's the ego, right? Feel, semantically feel. I'll explain this. If we just feel and just allow that feeling to flow from a drip into a stream and then into a river, it will eventually go back to source, which is the feel state of oneness, right? And I'm going to give you an example of this, right? Now, this understanding came to me after a controlling relationship that I was in, a 3-year controlling relationship, right? And it had been about 3 weeks after this relationship had been ended, and no connection, nothing, And I was laying in bed, and I was like, I couldn't understand what was going on, right? And I had lots of what felt like anxiety and frustration flowing into my chest. And I was almost starting to have a panic attack. I was there going, what is this? I don't understand what this is. Right? And I heard at that time, stop resisting it. Just feel into it more. And at first I was like, what is it? Right? And I'll explain the process. As I just started to switch off, trying to understand what it is, ego, thought, trying to understand, trying to categorize, label it, right? And I just went into just feel it, right? What I did is I felt it as like almost as if it was a shape, like a color, a sensation. Where is it? How far does this feeling in the chest? And for most people that feel stress or worry, anxiety, you'll feel it as a heaviness in some way, here or here, right? Over the chest or throat. Just feel it. How far does it extend? How deeply does it extend into the heart? Just feel it. Don't analyze it. And what happens is that feeling of tightness that I was feeling as I felt it, that tightness then eventually turned into a sort of irritation. And that irritation eventually turned into a tickle. And that tickle eventually turned into a giggle. And then that giggle eventually turned into me laughing. And then eventually I realized that I was happy, right? But I was so addicted and so used to not feeling that feeling that my brain was logically trying to get in the way, right? And goes back to the rain analogy. If we just somatically feel, switching off the brain and the story, and just allow ourselves to feel as a somatic sensation, all feelings will go from wherever they're at in the body, flow back to source oneness and the I am, right?
Exactly. I wanted to connect that with the I am. As Saint Germain says, where there is light, there cannot be any darkness. And as you are somatically feeling into the body, what you're essentially doing is you bring in presence awareness to that area, and presence awareness is the light that dissolves the emotion. And then you have sadness. Okay, you put your presence and your awareness into that. You put your I am, essentially, that's what you're doing. You put in your I am presence into that area, and the sadness dissolves, and it sort of opens, right? It's like it opens, and then you realize the thing that is left is really the happiness that was the building block of even the sadness, right? Like, once the happiness dissolves, the vibration that you label as sadness, it dissolves, you're left with this feeling of expansiveness, like joy, laughter. And I just wanted to connect that to the I am, because I think we may not know what we're doing, but when we're bringing our attention, our awareness to an area, we're using a mighty force.
Yeah.
So what you said about the thought and feeling being like a charge, and the thought, how did you express the thought? The charge, and the feeling was the charge, and the thought
form.
was the form. Yeah.
Yeah, the charge and the form.
Yeah.
Feeling of the charge. It's almost a magnet, in essence. So it's the charge that is pulling that in. So the mind defines what is being pulled in. The emotion is the state, the feel state that is coming in. So again, you're thinking of job. The form of job is pulled in with the I lack, I am wanting.
Exactly.
Rather than the feel state of I have. But again, this is one of these things that when we're dealing with manifestation, right? Again, there is such a thing. But again, we need to be very, very conscious of the fact that quite often we are trying to create what we think will give us a feeling. And again, we need to be aware that we're stuck in ego within that. Right? When people realize this, and again, a lot of the time, to us, we practice this, right? But to most people, the concept of being able to switch on a feeling by feeling is just like an entirely alien concept. They just don't understand. Just what do you mean, just feel? Just
if you give them a slap in the face, that may work, you know? What do you mean feel?
Yeah, but
give them a feeling, and they'll feel
understand that. And this is interesting.
Yeah.
Once I was sitting here stuck in, for people that do spiritual work, they'll be like grounding, right? I'm ungrounded, and I was sitting here trying to meditate, and I was all wispy, and I had a brain fog, and I didn't want to, and I was like, I couldn't figure out how to feel alive in presence. And then my guide said to me, "You'll be grounded soon." And I went, I don't know what to say. And this was when I was younger, I was like 18 or something. And then my mum called down from downstairs, dinner's ready, right? And because I was out of it, I jumped up quite quickly and went to walk, and I smacked my head in a door, right? Really hard. And then I literally heard my guide said, "You're grounded now."
You're grounded,
and I was like,
yeah.
And I was like, oof. I was like, okay, I'm back to, and again, this is the thing. And it's called mental illness for a reason, right? The mind is the thing that creates all of the problems, right? And if we look at it, one thing I wanted to add towards emotion, this is what, I've been in counselling, I've done psychodynamic counselling and all this kind of thing, all the Freudian concepts, being a counsellor and hypnotherapist for many years. And one of the things that is deeply troubling, and therefore doesn't work, is when you go to a counsellor, they'll get you to talk about all your problems. And the fundamental principle of life is that whatever you focus on grows, okay? And also, the mind just repeats cycles and patterns, but in essence, whenever we are attempting to try to label a feeling here, it must remain, this is what my guide told me, the second we label a feeling, if you look at feeling as raw energy, it's raw life-giving energy, it's potentiality, right? All feelings are potentiality stuck in a label, right? So the second that we go, oh, what is that? And we go, oh, that's pain. We are labeling it as pain, and the energy must remain fixed within that label. We're putting a shape around it, and we're keeping it stuck in a certain transition from the raindrop in its pathway back to source, right? So the second that we go, what were you feeling at that time? Define it, right? Is it pain? Is it irritation? Is it grief? Is it loss, etc.? You're labeling it and keeping it stuck in your energetic form as that. Release the label, and if we look at why do we need to know what it is? If we look at that, the need to know what it is because we don't have enough faith and understanding of oneness, and so we're actually fearful of, if I don't know what it is, what am I going to do? So we're actually in a state of lack. I lack the understanding and oneness. So I must label it so I feel empowered enough by understanding, right? So we're actually coming from a place of lack by needing to understand, if that makes any sense, right? So we remove that, remove the label, and if we can get used to, and this is breaking the paradigms of modern existence entirely, don't label your feelings ever. Point blank, never. Right? That's the state that my guide wants to get the world to. Just feel and flow with, like a magnetic force, or push and pull, what feels like you want to go somewhere. Don't try to label whether it's good, bad, otherwise. Just feel like a magnetic force. When you're in an I am state, you feel this power, this beauty, this buzz of oneness. And if you are needed to transmit this, and this is what all of the great prophets and Jesus and all that, they're to be connected to this I am presence. It's a buzzing vibration of high frequency, and this goes back to, say, for example, Gandhi would have this, and Mother Teresa, they had on the Hawkins scale, for example, which is a scale that gauged vibrational frequency, a high vibration frequency which is connected to this I am state, or the love principle, God principle, etc. When you get to that stage, you become a living magnet for others to almost unify with you. And there's something that we can sort of prove with science here. Now, if you get like a tuning fork and you bash it to a certain principle, you put it in the other tuning forks, all of them vibrate to the same tune.
Yes.
Vibrationally, right?
Exactly.
So you don't need to know why. This is the ego. You don't need to know why. You just need to feel. Just feel I am.
Yeah.
And feel it more regularly and follow where it feels, and you will add that beautiful vibration of oneness to everyone around you.
Yeah. That's where I exactly wanted to jump in. I wanted to just say how difficult it is to put that into action, because as soon as you wake up, you are really bombarded with your past conditioning, your cultural conditioning, but more so the collective mind that is in your area. And I'm not saying this is a judgmental thing, but it is a reality that most people live in egoic consciousness. Most people live in anxiety, fear, lack, agitation, and I'm not labeling it as something bad. It's just a vibrational state. And that's what Saint Germain, his book, is all about, his affirmations. And he says, sometimes you have to say really powerful things to expel all these energies, push it out, and to grow in your I am presence. It's not easy to grow in your I am presence because of this external influence. If we lived in a community where there's everyone like Jesus and Buddha and like all enlightened people, it will be just effortless. I've been in a party before, someone's house, and they were all vibrationally high people, and it was a different experience. It was a completely different world that I entered into, and the conversations was easier. I felt happier. I felt more at ease. And yeah, if I'm around those people all the time, 100% I'm gonna be able to use the mightiest powers, my thought and feeling, in a way that is harmonious, in a way that brings the God presence in life. But what we have to understand, the reality of life, is there's tons of things coming from the outside, so that we have to stay on guard. As St. Paul, one of the disciples of Jesus, he says, take every thought captive. And a thought that comes into your mind, let's say you're not totally engaged with what you're doing, you have like moments of daydreaming or moments of like zoning out. This is a place where the ego can do some damage, and the unconscious can like do some damage, because you're not totally engaged, and it can just give you a suggestion, to play with. And you're like, yeah, this person did this thing wrong, and yeah, this person is really a bad guy. Like, I really hate him for that. And this is not your voice at all. In fact, you're the witness consciousness. These voices are just like energies literally suggested to you, right? And what Saint Germain prescribes is that you use different I am affirmations for different thoughts. So for example, if it is about judgments of other people, which is a typical thought that comes into many people's minds, they start judging and criticizing somebody. And his recommendation is to say the affirmation, it is not with the person which I am concerned, but with the I am presence that lives in the person. I choose to see the light, the perfect I am presence in those people. And I disregard anything that the outer does. And the outer, he means by the outer expression, which is always deemed to fail. Like if you're judging human beings, we can always judge each other because it's imperfect. The human condition is marked by suffering and imperfection. So of course you can sit down and criticize everyone and everything, yourself included. But we have to choose to focus on the I am, because where we focus is where we put our energy, and where we put our energy is where things grow. So the more we focus on the I am presence, the perfection in somebody we even don't like, the more we project perfection into the world. That's why watching the news and talking about it in a negative way is not a good idea, because you're projecting with the power of the I am, the creative power, you're projecting into the world. So take every thought captive, and every little thought you have, you can say to yourself, I just said this. First, you can deny it, right? You can say, I don't believe in this. Or you can skip the denial and just go with the powerful I am affirmation. And so I talked about the judgment of other people. If it's judgment of yourself, if it's like self-degradation, if it's like belittling yourself, you can say, I am the presence on guard here. I govern my mind, my feeling, and my actions. And everything will be in alignment with the qualities of I am presence, qualities of peace, joy, wholeness, and love. Something like that. Like these two affirmations, I'll just use some examples. One is for the outer world, like how we treat other people, and the other is towards ourselves. And it's really powerful, because we're not just correcting a thought with a thought, we're correcting a thought with the mighty power of the I am presence, right? And we're charging the feeling and the thought, charging it into our mind. And we like constantly do that. It's a constant practice. And he always says we have to stand on guard, like we have to be conscious, we have to be alert. And that's the difficulty. Like there's times we're on social media and we're not alert, we lose focus. And then we have to say to ourselves, if the mind is having a go at someone or a go at ourselves, bring it back to the I am presence. I think that's what makes it like a powerful practice, because before you do something like a podcast, you can ask the I am presence to go before you. And that's what my notes are saying. Saint Germain says, before you do anything, bring God's energy, God's power, the I am presence, to come before you and pour forth his energy and to prepare the way for you. That's like an act of bringing God into action. And what we have to understand about God is that in every moment, he's waiting for us to put him into action. He's infinite, and he's all loving. So there's no end to it, to how much we can use it. So we should be, not we should, but I want to be using it, for example, before I start anything, and in the middle of things that I'm doing. Let's say I'm writing a project and my mind gets tired. I am the presence, the ever-flowing energy that flows through me with ease. Something like that. Just go back to the I am, affirm it, and continue working. It takes 5-6 seconds, and don't say it in your mind, because sometimes it's better to say it with like how Saint Germain recommends. Say it in a low, masterful tone, You're not shouting, you're not screaming, but you're not saying it in your head either. You're speaking it out loud as an affirmed statement. And the things come to me intuitively is when I do an affirmation, I move my hand like this. It's like kind of like a sword or like something that cuts. You know, it's like a movement of my body with the affirmation as well. And you could do different movements. You could, I don't know, you could do the Kundalini one, like the Archer pose, and like do that affirmation. But the beauty of affirmations is you don't have to sit down and meditate. It's active, you know. If you don't like sitting down meditating and you don't know what you're doing if you're meditating, is take a walk and just keep affirming things. If your mind goes negative, judgment towards other people or judgment towards yourself, if your mind goes to the past, resisting the past, goes into the future, seeking the future, just with affirmation, bring it back to the I am presence. And yeah, you can take a walk and achieve much more consciously than sitting down and meditating for an hour if you are correcting those thoughts. And that's what Saint Germain says, is that if you can for just 1 month hold every thought captive and correct those thoughts, because it's with self-correction and self-discipline of controlling these two mightiest of powers that we can really transform ourselves. So that's like the foundation. Meditation is not the foundation. The foundation is using our thoughts and our feeling in a way that's harmonious, in a way that's balanced, loving, peaceful, etc., etc. So yeah, I think we've been speaking for a while. If you have any final comments.
There's something on that area, because we're dealing with dis-ease. Any form of dis-ease we can be resolved back to oneness with an access point. And now what you've just talked about there is, what was put into my head was countercrafting, right? So if you've crafted a reality of, I'm so peeved off because of that person, whatever, you countercraft back by the use of your own affirmations, as you've mentioned. And that gets you back to a oneness state. Or you can do field state shifting. And they're basically two axes of the same oneness state. Now, field state shifting is where the thing that my guide wants me to work on and bring to the world, because apparently it's not something that is really known about. But when you have let's just say you have a feeling that comes after a judgment. So you've said, oh, that person said this and that to me, that makes me, and then you either get the feeling rush through your body. Become somatically aware of that feeling. Switch the thoughts off, become somatically aware of it. Where is it in your body, energetically? Is it here in the throat? Does it feel like a tense feeling? Does it feel it? And that's all you need to do. Feel it. Like a child does, play around with it and then let it feel. Now, when you feel anything, it will flow. And it will flow back up to source. And you'll just go, oh, and it'll go. Stop the story and go back to feeling. So you feel where the tension lies in your energetic form. Because what happens is when you say and you craft a spell with word and feeling, you put that energy in your aura, right? But if you can either countercast, like Alice just said there, by crafting another spell that dissolves it, or you feel it without crafting anything, and it will go back to source naturally.
Yes, and
either or, any approach.
Yeah, that's the beauty. I used to do just this practice of awareness of being, where I just go become aware of awareness, and then I found that wasn't enough because it wasn't like active. And my energy is like active, so I wanted to be more active. So I think it's amazing to do both. I actually believe that it's good to start with a state shift, shift state. Is that what it is?
Field state shifting.
Field state shifting, yeah. It's good to start with that. Go in my method. Go to the awareness of your being aware of being aware. First, go to that. Feel your I am presence, and then once you feel that I am presence, once you're there, present, then begin to command and declare. So it's a combination of a field state that first you go there to your to place of your sovereignty, place of your power, and then from that place you begin to declare and command.
Yeah, I suppose you can do it.
Combining them, yeah.
To me, they're both different tools that get you the same state.
Yeah,
because it hasn't been practiced very much. The concept of, and I know I've been practicing it for a while, so being able to feel to a state of oneness just by feeling is something that most people would be like, well, how do you do that? You just have to get used to feeling. And when you can do it, and I do this in meditation quite regularly, if you just feel, you then notice as you feel and you get deeply into feeling, and you feel it, you notice that the feelings are going, and then you realize that if you keep feeling deeper, you get into a wave and you start pulsing. And before you know it, you're going, and you are buzzing with raw energy, and you're like, and it's literally like being connected like Neo into the Matrix, right? You just, and if we practice feel state, it's powerful. So, and there are two paths to ending disease, recasting, affirmation with power and I am, or feel state shifting. They're just the axis of two different avenues to get to the I am state of oneness in the middle. You choose whatever you feel applies to you most. Some people are more somatic, some people are more conscious. Affirmers, whatever feels right for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. I learned a lot speaking to you.
Yeah, and you.
It's amazing to have this conversation with someone who can play with that,
It's been amazing.
Thank you so much. I'll give you a hug, man. Thank you. Amazing.